Who is Saul, other than the smartest man in the world?
So who am I? I'm a guy who, I think that, no one's ever asked me that question.
You're listening to episode 66 of the Comm Cafe, the man behind the ideas. Saul Colt stops by the cafe today, and after we get through that first question, it's smooth sailing. Saul shares with us an idea for your podcast. You want to write this one down. Also confirming accountants, CPA accountants, are truly cool people. He also shares with us what is stunt marketing, word of mouth marketing, including sharing with us some stories about how he created marketing campaigns for companies like Rogers, FreshBooks, Xero. That's right, cloud accounting software companies used Saul's company to not only create the ideas, but to integrate them into their marketing plans and execute. Now, grab your pen and paper, get ready. Here's my conversation with Saul Colt.
Hey, good afternoon. It's Dwayne Richards. I am the host of Comm Cafe. I'm already a little nervous. I have an awesome guest today. I'm not sure why I'm nervous. It's my show. Hey, this is a place for entrepreneurs, small business owners, and possibly if you're a CPA accountant, you may want to listen to this too. I have on with me today a special guest. It is Saul Colt. He is the founder, creative director of the Idea Integration Company. He was employee number 1 in Canada for Zipcar. Really? Cool. The head of magic of FreshBooks and the chief evangelist for Xero, all companies that actually I know really well as an accountant. He did a little bit of work for Rogers, and he claims, it's on his website, so it must be true, because we know everything on the internet is true, right, Saul? Mm-hmm. He is the smartest man in the world. Hey, Saul, welcome to the Comm Cafe.
Thank you, Dwayne. I'm excited to be here. Don't be nervous. I'm super gentle. I'll do all the talking.
Wonderful. And I just have to ask, not even the perfect question. I just have to get a couple questions out to you. And then I know I heard you speak at the FreshBooks event, and I know you're well spoken. So, who is Saul, other than the smartest man in the world?
So who am I? I'm a guy who, I think that, no one's ever asked me that question. I'm probably just a frustrated performance artist that uses marketing as a way to, as my stage. I love creating spectacles that get people's attention and drive people to, create sort of cult-like love for brands. So who am I? I'm just a guy who's, dying for validation and attention like everyone else.
And 100% honest too. Like we all want attention. And I like what you said is that one of the things you said was creating myths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think
myths with marketing.
Yeah, I believe that the two greatest things that a company can have or own is a myth about themselves and an opinion. And usually the two line up pretty, like one helps the other and vice versa. Because, people always say, your brand is your brand isn't what you say it is. It's what Google says it is or what your customer says it is. And all that's really nonsense because your brand is really like your myth about you and what people share and what people talk about. An example I use all the time is, if you were to ask 100 people what they think of Rolex, the watch company, they would talk about, the price. They would talk about the quality. They would talk about, the prestige of owning a Rolex. But if you ask me all about Rolex, like I want to own a Rolex, but I don't want to own it because of the price and the quality and the prestige. I want to own it because Tom Selleck wore one on Magnum PI. So the things that people connect to, you have zero control over, and it's going to be different. 100 people are going to have, 57 different answers of how they describe your brand. So if you give them the myth of the brand, usually you can control a little bit more than just keep pushing, hard on we're about this and we're about this and these are our values. So I'm a big believer in myth building. I think that is the best way to get people to sort of love your brand.
I remember. I am old enough, so I actually do know who Tom Selleck is and was. And
Mm-hmm.
um, some of our younger listeners may not. Just go Google him. He's that guy on the police show now. So
Yes, he used to be the coolest. He still is, but he used to be the coolest.
He was. All right. Where do we want to go? How did you become employee number one for Zipcar?
I wish there was a really cool story, like, I won a contest or I knew somebody. My days at Zipcar were really early in my career, and I hadn't really established myself as the brand person I am now, and hadn't really established, even my personal brand. So it was just, probably just a lot of dumb luck and hard work. I applied just online. I did well in the interview process, and Zipcar was a really great opportunity for me because they let me be myself. I've really been myself in 90% of the roles I've had, which I think is perhaps unique, because a lot of times once what gets you the job isn't what keeps you your job. And I've always kind of gone in and always said, this is me. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm going to be, I'm going to work harder than anyone else, and I'm going to give you crazy results, but we're going to do it in a little bit of a non-traditional way. And Zipcar was very open to it. And a lot of the things we did, one of the launch things we did for Zipcar was we bought an old Crown Victoria from a junkyard, and we towed it downtown, and pretty much at lunch hour in the middle of Queen and in between Spadina and University, we invited people to destroy this car with a sledgehammer because they were taking a swing at the high cost of gas. And it was $5 to demolish the car. We donated all the money to charity. There was a lot of media there. We got attention. But, everything I do, and I don't know if it's just that I'm wired a little differently or something, but it's always about creating these crazy spectacles that people are going to talk about. And I don't think I really hadn't established myself at that time. So the whole Zipcar thing was absolute, right place, right time, a little bit of dumb luck, no great story. But what I did with the opportunity is really the great story, as opposed to just saying I knew a guy or somebody saw me here or whatever. It's, every step of my career, and I've had crazy roller coaster career of amazing highs and amazing lows. It has not been, this smooth, and you hear people talk at TED Talks, never any adversity, never any setbacks. I've had I wouldn't wish this on anybody. It's been mostly good, but man, those lows were low. But every step of my career, it's really been about taking advantage of an opportunity and doing something really amazing with it, and really just working harder than anyone else.
That's great. It wasn't really to touch on, because people are like, oh, right. Everyone says that they had like peaks and valleys, and everyone says they hit bottom. Can we share a little? You have a bottom story just to show how real is Saul?
How real is me? I sat at home for 9 months, unemployed, and nobody would touch me for a long time. Well, not a long time, but it wasn't that I did anything like didn't steal money, didn't touch anybody, nothing like that damaging like that. It's just I'm a very big personality, and some people are willing to. And I don't want to use the word put up with it, because that's not the correct word. Some people embrace it and some people don't. And some companies I would never be a fit in. And in some companies I'm an amazing fit. So I think because I've got an incredible amount of self-awareness, I try not to put myself into positions where I'm not going to be successful. Guy Kawasaki, the famous Apple early Apple guy, and now he does a bunch of things. He had a quote one time, which I've always kind of thought was really interesting, and I in no way embody this quote, because it doesn't completely apply to me, but it's an interesting thought process. Somebody asked Guy, somebody said Guy had the Midas touch, and everything he touches turns to gold, and he said that it's not exactly true. His great skill is knowing when something's 9/10 gold already, and he takes it from 9 to 10. So I think I try to steer away from situations where it's 2 out of 10 and hover around the 5 to 6 out of 10 and take things from there.
Oh, I think that's a good point. Now, here, because we're gonna have people listening that are entrepreneurs and gonna have this piece is that how do you hold the course when you're sitting at home and it's like month 6, and how I got to hold the course like, no, this is me, this is my brand, this is magic. I'm the head of magic. I'm a chief evangelist versus I need a job tomorrow to pay the rent, and I'm gonna go like do something that isn't in alignment with what we do. What's a piece of advice, or just is it just being aware, like the self-awareness, so that you just know that the time's going to come that someone's going to call?
So I would say I'm relentlessly stubborn about my brand. It's been the best and worst thing in my life. It's been amazing because it's opened thousands of doors for me, incredible opportunities. I've gotten to speak at some really amazing conferences. I've been a guest lecturer at Stanford University and NYU and all these crazy cool things, and places that would have never accepted me as a student let me come in and talk to kids. So there's something ironic about that. But at the same time, my brand has closed tons of doors for me. But at the same time, I look around and I see people who don't have an established brand. So I think I'm ahead in that respect, because at least, so here's the thing. I'm probably getting off topic, but the most important thing that I've found in my career, and every opportunity that's come, is from being top of mind. And so, and I can't, scream this from the rooftops loud enough that for everybody, no matter what your job is, middle manager, entry level, senior person, you always want to be top of mind, either for your next opportunity or just a project within your company. You want someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, we need you on this. We know exactly what you do. So even the whole time that I was, sitting at home, and this is many years ago, it's not recent, but still, little bit of scar tissue left over from it. Video wasn't a big thing at that time, so I couldn't go out and talk all the time on video, but I was blogging a lot, and I was trying to, show up at events, and I just made finding a job my job. So got up every day, kept a schedule, made sure I spoke to X number of people, followed up. That just was my job, and I used a lot of the skills. I was doing little stunts for myself, and I was sending out packages to people to get noticed and get on their radar and things along those lines. So it was awful and it wasn't fun, but I think I just tricked myself into making sure that I never gave up, and perhaps it was a little bit of blissful ignorance too. I just believed in myself so much that, and there was plenty of times where I didn't, but for the most part, I just knew something was going to happen, had to wait it out, and whenever that happened, I knew that I was going to just, make sure that opportunity wasn't squandered.
And really, you became your own. You used your own services on yourself. You marketed yourself. So, how about the? I remember you told a story about you ran a contest to see who wants to hire Saul. It was a contest.
So about 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago now, somewhere between 2 and 3 years ago. I'm really bad with timelines. It's all the last 20 years is just meshed into one thing in my brain. But probably 3 years ago, I just ended a contract with a company, and I had a fair bit of attention on me, like positive notoriety, and I didn't want so. I'm like a crazy workaholic, and I'm not saying you should be. I've got almost no work-life balance. partially my choice, partially my insecurity that I never know when like my next, big paycheck will come from. So it's a little of both, but I make it work somehow. I just ended a contract, and most people I know that end a contract, they go on vacation for 3 weeks, or they do whatever. I want to never be out of work ever, because it's just the way my brain works, or whatever. So I started a contest to find my next role, and I thought I probably only get one time in my life to really control where I'm going to go. And I had some success. I top of mind, some media attention. So I decided to, instead of me just sending out a bunch of resumes to people or networking into a job, I was going to turn the tables on the whole hiring process, because really the hiring process is so broken, and it's really awful. If you think about it, the first contact you have with someone who could be your next employer, you're always on the defensive. Well, tell me about this. What would you do with this? Why were you let go? Why aren't you there anymore? You're always defending yourself, and it's not a positive thing. It's really more of, they're putting you in a position of insecurity. So like the whole hiring process, like I realize it's maybe the best we can come up with for now, but it's really a strange, weird thing to go through, especially when you're vulnerable. So I just decided to make companies apply to work with me, and I made them go through the whole process. And it wasn't in a mean way, and it wasn't mean spirited, and it wasn't I wasn't being crazy, but I never made myself seem like a jerk. It was never like, tell me why I should work with you. But it was really, I wanted to control the conversation and ask deeper questions that would probably be allowed if we were sitting in different chairs. So I did, walk them through why, I was the right person, and I did walk them through my career and accomplishments. But it was really more about, like, you can't really ask an HR person normally, what are the goals of the business, and what would the first 6 months look like, or 9 months, and what do you expect from the person in this role? They're gonna they're gonna read it into something that probably isn't gonna be positive for you. I wanted to ask all those questions because I was committing to stay at somewhere for like minimum of a year, possibly longer. And I didn't want to be like 4 months in and hate myself, or hate this job, or hate the company. So it was successful for me. It worked for me. I don't think I could get away with it again, probably, because people would be like, oh, that's the Win Saul guy, like Mr. Arrogant or whatever. But part of the reason I think that it worked was, I wasn't a jerk about it. There was a lot of humility in it. Like, it was still like, hey, I need a job. But at the same time, it's like, I want to try something a little different. And I think that it was also just like, it was a little refreshing. Like, people were curious, if not, curious probably more than anything.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Like, and why not give it a try? Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Exactly.
No one, you didn't get to pick a winner. A little marketing advice for as a CPA and a financial advisor. We were talking beforehand that CPAs and advisors, like, we're generally got to be one of the most boring industries that there are. Now, you've done some awesome things like cloud marketing with clouds for Xero. Some really good stuff with FreshBooks. So you've broken into that cloud accounting, the kind of the new age of accounting marketing. What would it be? What's some a little free advice for if someone's like a bigger CPA firm? Like, it's really interesting because now, like, the big four firms are actually starting to buy some of these little cloud accounting practices, because they said, wait a second, these guys are actually building businesses. So now guys that couldn't afford to be partners are actually being bought by the firms, and now they're getting paid to become a partner, which is super awesome. So some of those guys that people are creating like that cloud accounting based firm that's kind of the new age, that are open for something a little bit different. They're not their father's accountant. How do you market yourself?
All right, so I think everybody should have a niche, and the niche could be, you're targeting your industry, you're targeting a certain vertical. So, if you're just an accountant, or even a cloud-based accountant, and I'm open for business, I'll take anybody. You're going to get, a few different people and things, but it's hard to actually focus your marketing on the type of group that you're probably really looking for. So if you can pick a group of people that you want to work with and make that your specialty. So if you're, the cloud accounting practice for startups, you're the cloud accounting practice for the entertainment industry, or the cloud accounting practice for tradespeople. And then you can actually, ingrain yourself in that community. You can target them through advertising, and, for the most part, people want to work with someone that looks and feels and smells like them. So, and like, I actually don't think accountants and CPAs are boring. I've spent a lot of time over the years with them. It takes a real certain personality to be great at it, but that doesn't mean that you're boring like all the time. It's like, and one of the things that I've always preached from targeting accountants and small businesses at either FreshBooks or Xero is, and you can confirm or deny this, all the accountants I've met, they all joke and they're all irreverent about it being really boring, but them as people are not boring. So why would you're really marketing to people still. You're always marketing. It's always a person making a decision whether to buy your product or not buy your product. So if the people aren't boring, and maybe maybe their day job isn't as exciting as a race car driver or something like that, but they still have interests. They still, are craving fun and various things. So don't treat them like boring people. You should never, accountants are far from boring. I've had some pretty fun nights with groups of accountants and stuff like that.
Okay. Now, who was the jazz band thing? Was that for FreshBooks or Xero, or who was that? The jazz band
for FreshBooks. So pretty much.
So let's talk about that, because that is not boring. What you did for. So can you share that little story about how maybe accountants aren't so boring?
Yeah, so it's actually a year ago today. It showed up this morning in my Facebook on this day, memory reminder thing. So the Collision Conference, which is a tech conference in New Orleans, we flew down to the Collision Conference, and it was just, it was your typical tech conference. There's a lot of booths, a lot of, lectures and things like that. And the whole thing's taking place in New Orleans, which is the greatest, most fun, weird, wild city in the world, at least, I've been to. And you pretty much are spending your whole time in a convention center, and you don't even get to see any part of like the city or the experience. It could have been in a small town anywhere, with a big building. So we decided, instead of getting a booth and trying to get people to talk to us in that way, we hired a traditional New Orleans jazz band, and we did a traditional New Orleans parade that are very common, that they do through the downtown area. We just happened to do it through the convention center. And we had all of our, not all of them, but we invited all of our customers and accountants and bookkeepers and CPAs who are at the conference or in the area to join us. And it was kind of like a customer appreciation parade. And we had, maybe 60 people following behind on the parade. And we pulled people in from, the various places in the convention center. And, we ran it for, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or so, 45 minutes. We also gave out beignets. We had a beignet food truck. The beignets are the New Orleans, traditional New Orleans fried donut. And we created, we brought some of the city into the convention center, and, sort of wrapped the brand all around that, because, it was such a shame to think that you're in, it's like going to Paris and never leaving your hotel room. Like, so we brought a little bit of, the traditions of the city to people who, weren't local into the conference. And we got into a lot of trouble with that too, because we didn't get permission to do it, but it was well worth it.
All right. On that note, how often has it been where you've kind of, is it easier, the old thing about, is it easier to ask forgiveness than permission? Because if you would have asked permission, chances would have been like next to zero that they would have let you do all of that.
Yeah. So I'd say 50-50 ask for permission. Sometimes if we think we can get away with it, we'll ask. If we don't think we'll get an okay, we don't ask. There's been times where I've been detained by security. I've gotten pretty good over the last 20 years of talking myself out of trouble with police, security guards, state officials, and things like that. Don't really ask for permission too often, because it's all going to be a surprise. We want, real reactions to things, and that's part of my charm. Companies hire me to do like safe but crazy things, and they also have like a bit of a plausible deniability.
Yeah, but again, you said it's safe. Like you're not breaking. It's not like as in your marketing budget, you're not saying, hey, I need some bail money to inside the marketing, because chances are I'm going to be arrested. Like you're not free jumping off a building or something. You're just doing something that's not not by the rules and regulations of the trade show. But you're not trespassing. You're
no vandalism, no destroying property, no hurting people, no offensive materials. It's just usually stand places we're not supposed to stand.
Yeah, exactly. Super. All right. Now, one of the other things you did, or you do maybe so, is you've done a little bit of podcasting work. So you've actually helped. I know I saw something on there where you've actually helped some clients get on the Noteworthy, or help them launch their podcasts. So maybe what would you? Because sometimes we have a little thing called podcast buddies, where we help just the average person, that thinks about wanting to do a podcast. We kind of just hold their hand and get them started. Really, it's not about branding yet so much as it's not creating like a big brand podcast. Maybe what's it? So not everyone's goal is to get on Noteworthy, but maybe just if someone's thinking about a podcast, what would be, from a marketing point of view, do you have like three things that people should think about before even starting their podcast, maybe?
Yeah. So first I'll say, every podcast I've ever released has been on New and Noteworthy, and I'll be completely transparent and honest here. I don't know if there's anything you can do. I think that a little bit is maybe the fact that I've got a bit of a brand around myself, and everything I do, I promote like crazy ahead of time, so that they're taking a chance on knowing that it's going to stick around, it's going to get promoted, it's going to be of decent production value, and they're usually pretty niche. So I'm not doing like a general topic. I'm doing something that's for a specific group of people. So it might be catering to a group that they either need podcasts for, or they just like the fact that it's we know who our target market is. So I can't say like there's any secret formula for it. It's probably a little bit of dumb luck and a little bit of being top of mind and previous success and stuff like that. So I never go in and promise it'll get New and Noteworthy with clients, but I do show that it has happened every time. As far as 3 tips, here's some things that people don't always think about. Building an audience is actually kind of hard. So you should actually start months before you release your podcast. Think of it as launching a new product or a service. So get a bunch of email addresses, start a newsletter, make sure you make it as easy as possible for people to get your podcast. Like put it on every platform you can think of. So there's TuneIn, there's iTunes, there's SoundCloud, there's Stitcher, there's all the different ones. Make it so like doesn't matter what phone they use, doesn't matter what brand laptop they have, operating system, anything, they can find your podcast. I always get a unique URL to I buy the URL for the podcast and just either redirect it to a homepage for the podcast, or just send it to iTunes. So if someone says, "Oh, where can I find your podcast?" Never ask them to search, because chances are if they're searching, they'll find yours, but they'll also find 10 other things similar to yours that could just distract them. So it's always just, just go to, whatever podcast, I actually own the URL, thepodcast.co. And so it's just like, go to the podcast.co. It's something easy, memorable, and it's just, they're going to get to what they want and thing. Other thing is, and these are all the standard things that you'll read in any, 18 ways to do this or that blog post, but make sure you do it every week, do it at the same time, make sure it's super relevant to your audience, don't, make it confusing how to get it, all those things. And also, it's like the tried and true way of invite guests and ask them to promote it to their audiences too. And so, you're getting fresh content from different voices, but, ask them to, bring a few friends and check out your podcast because they're supporting your guest.
Oh, all great ones. I had not heard about which makes sense, the website, directed to iTunes. Mm-hmm. Because then sometimes you're like, oh, go to my website, but if they don't go, then they get distracted reading a blog and they never go, or like you said, just having them go to Google, and you don't want them going down the rabbit hole and finding someone else's that spelled it with a different, they put a the instead of the, and you didn't, and now all of a sudden you just directed someone to someone else's show.
How many times have you been on Amazon where they show you like 10 other things to buy, and it's 15 minutes later and you forgot to even pick up the thing you went for?
Right. One of the ones I use actually is the program I use Podbeam for mine, and it actually automatically sets and creates a YouTube. So it actually puts over my podcast on YouTube. So some people are like, really? Podcast on YouTube? But like, for example, my girlfriend, she has a BlackBerry, and she actually listens to stuff. She listens to it off of YouTube because she doesn't have iTunes necessarily on her BlackBerry. So YouTube is another one where it doesn't have to be a video podcast. It can just be, some people just listen to stuff, but they use YouTube as the app. Cool. All right. It's a lot. We covered a lot of stuff today. So good. Myth, creating that myth piece. Oh, I love that piece. And I've heard it so many times, but I was reminded of it yet again by you. Top of mind. So again, if you're an accountant, myself as a financial advisor, not everyone needs to do their taxes, but everyone needs to do their taxes, but they're not doing their taxes in September. They're doing their taxes in March or just now. And they're like, man, when they're sitting there banging their head against the wall saying, I don't want to do my taxes again this year, who's top of mind? That's the first person that they're going to go. They're not necessarily going to go to Yellow Pages. They're not necessarily going to go to Google. They're going to say, hey, or they're going to put it on Facebook now. It's amazing the number of people that just use Facebook as a way or social media. It could be Instagram, to just say, hey, who knows a good marketing person? Like one of my colleagues, she just put, who knows someone like a social media marketer? I'm looking for one. They just post it on Facebook.
But also, it's also awful, and I mean this in a kind way. Like I saw somebody the other day say, who's a good accountant, and it got 50 different comments because everyone was just saying, try this person, this person, this person. You're in a worse position you were than before you asked the question. You want 3 names, not 50.
Yeah, actually, I'll be guilty. I'll raise my hand. Guilty of that. When we sold our house last year, I went to Facebook. I had an idea of who I wanted to work with, but I'm like, maybe someone's got a different feel for it. So I said, hey, I'm looking for a good realtor in Etobicoke. And I did. I probably got 40 different things. I reached out. We interviewed 2 people. End of the day, I went back to the person who I know really well that we did personal development with. I know her. We brought her in last, and she gave us a full turnkey solution. And she wasn't just selling her house. So she staged it. She helped us do some repairs. She did the whole thing and really just relieved us of a really stressful situation. And she's the one that got our business. And it turned out it was someone I knew. But you're right. It's sometimes we go into paralysis by analysis because we get too many suggestions, and we know a confused mind makes no decisions. Wonderful. All right, parting thought, message. Hey, if you want to hire Saul's you are looking for your next you are looking for your next client or your next person to work with. But,
Yeah, no, I'm looking for projects right now. So if anyone's looking for non-traditional marketing, branded podcast, marketing stunts, just a little bit of a shake up the status quo. We do branded videos, we do all sorts of crazy things. Please reach out to me. You can either email me at Saul Colt, all one word, at theideaintegration.com, or just go to my website, theideaintegration.com.
wonderful. Thank you so much again for saying yes and stopping by the Comm Cafe. It's been fun. I heard it was really great hearing all your stories, and I'm like, let's see if Saul can come on to the podcast and just share some of those stories that I heard that day at the FreshBooks event, and we did.
This was very cool. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks again. And thank you to the listener. Yes, you, the individual listening to us today, go on and on about different stories and about how accountants really are cool. We are cool people, and some just little different ideas for marketing. And one last thought was, remember, it is top of mind, and create that myth. I really like that part. And if you don't remember, go back, rewind, listen to that piece again right near the beginning about creating the myth around your brand. Thanks again for stopping by the Comm Cafe.